Good afternoon. It is News Radio 1029 KARN. I am your host, Brad Schmidt. Thanks for joining me this afternoon. 501-403-KARN. 501-403-5276 is the phone number if you want to join the conversation, be a part of the discussion today. We got a lot to talk about today. We do have some kind of, late breaking news, if you will, things that are kind of happening around the country and around the state and around our region, but we're gonna talk about some other kind of conceptual things today too. I've got a couple of what if questions for you. We'll get into that. We'll talk a little bit about the minimum wage. A local story that I want to get some attention on and begin to start to look at. We've talked about this in the past on the Schmidt Show. Quite a bit, and it's the issue of homelessness and how out of control it's gotten. I've been hearing reports recently, and I heard one just this morning from an employee who got to work, and in the parking lot where they work, it's all full of trash and garbage and things laying around, and they thought there was, some piece of plastic or something, this black piece of garbage or trash in the middle of the parking lot that they were going to have to clean up or whatever it was. As they got closer to it, they realized it wasn't plastic. It wasn't just your average run-of-the-mill piece of garbage left laying around. It was literal human feces. And this is not the first time there was things like that and what do you call it? Biological material left behind in the form of used condoms and other things. It's happened before in this company's parking lot. The company asked that I not name them because they don't want to be a part of the discussion. But this is at a business in the city of Little Rock. This isn't downtown San Francisco where we get to make fun of all the crazy liberals and the dirty hippies and all of that in downtown San Francisco in California. This is Little Rock. And the homelessness problem is not that there are a bunch of grand, noble people who are just fighting to get by, and inflation has hit them hard and things like that. These are people who are so out of touch with mainstream society that they believe it is perfectly acceptable to use a company's parking lot as a toilet and a place to leave their used condoms and drug paraphernalia. And again, this isn't in some rundown, nasty section of town. This is in West Little Rock. And nearby just happens to be a homeless camp. So my guess is that it probably wasn't employees showing up there on the weekend while the business was closed, having a rager party and defecating in the parking lot. My guess is their homeless camp, just a few blocks away or a few hundred yards away, decided that, hey, here's a dark parking lot that we can use for whatever we want. And because we're disgusting and gross human beings, we can not have to even worry about cleaning up after ourselves. And because clearly Mayor Frank Scott doesn't give a rat's ass about this city and doing anything about it, that he's happily allowing this to be continued. Because this business also said don't bother calling the police and talking to anyone within the city about it because they're not going to do anything anyway. So this is what our city's turning into. And we can talk about having compassion for homeless people, and we can talk about mental health and mental illness, and we can talk about all of the stuff that comes along with this. The COVID shutting down businesses and causing economic hardship, and we can talk about addiction and all of that stuff. But in the end, someone within the city that we pay tens of thousands of dollars a year in taxes to, each and every one of us, isn't doing anything to keep those of us who are law-abiding, tax-paying citizens safe and protected from the scourge of this community. And I'm sick and tired of this lie, this BS nonsense that, oh, they're just good people who've fallen on hard times. That is a load of garbage. Because good people who have fallen on hard times don't have sex in a rotty, old, nasty, broken down couch next to a dumpster, leave a used condom laying there, and then take a dump in the parking lot. That's not a good person who fell on hard times. That's a disgusting human being with absolutely no respect for themselves or anyone else around them, or their neighbors or other community members. We have to have some honest conversations about this at some point. At some point, we have to stop coddling and protecting people that are willing to behave this way in civilized society. A friend of mine regularly tells me being clean doesn't cost anything. Cleaning up your neighborhood, cleaning up your house, your front yard, it doesn't cost anything. And not leaving used condoms and feces in people's parking lots is not an issue of poverty. It's an issue of someone who has absolutely no dignity and or respect for their fellow man in the community in which they live. And we've got to start having this conversation, because clearly Mayor Scott does not care. Clearly, Mayor Scott and the city council do not care about doing anything to take care of and prevent the city from becoming another San Francisco, where we're going to have to start producing and publicizing feces maps so you can walk through the city of Little Rock and not step in piles of human crap. This is what the legacy of Mayor Scott should be. He turned it into a city where it was perfectly acceptable for people to leave used condoms and feces in business parking lots, where the employees then have to go out and clean up after them so their customers don't have to deal with it. It's disturbing, it's disgusting, and it's about time we start dealing with it. And at this point, I'm at a loss on what to do. Because what do? Call the police department? What are they going to say? Sorry, we're too busy dealing with out-of-control murder rates, burglaries, breaking and entering, and violent crime. We don't have time to deal with that. And they shouldn't have to. That should not be an issue for the police to have to deal with. Doesn't matter. Don't bother calling the city. What are they going to do? Send somebody out with a garbage truck to pick it up? I doubt it. So instead, this is an extra expense, an extra bit of effort and energy and resources that these businesses have to put out just so their customers don't have to walk through a minefield of used condoms and feces to get to their store. Because you know what will happen when the first time a customer does that? Has to walk around or accidentally steps in it on the way to the door? They're going to find another business that does the same amount or the same type of work, and they're going to leave a review on Google Maps and go, I went to that place, and I'm never going back. There was human feces and used condoms in their parking lot. So congratulations, Mayor Scott. You've turned us into a third-rate version of San Francisco. 501-403-KRN is the phone number, 501-403-5276. We got more to get to. We'll talk a little bit about some hunting land and WMAs and the Ouachita National Forest, or should I say the Ouachita National Forest. We'll continue next on KRN.